All right, if you have your Bibles, turn to John chapter 9. We only have this week and next week on this particular subject as we go over the miracles. And so I'm pretty excited about this one. But let me start by saying this. I am a fantastic husband. Does that seem like a weird way to start? Yeah. Every morning, I have a point to this. Every morning, I get up and I try in the dark to I get up really early and I like scramble and work in the dark. And at least once out of every 7 times, I don't knock something over, break something, cause so much noise that everyone wakes up anyway. But that one time, I'm pretty awesome. I think I can see in the dark. I have this ninja desire in my head, but I really can't. I'm not good at seeing in the dark, and I fumble around. Have you ever watched a football game or a basketball game, whatever sport you like, and the ref makes a call, and you sort of jump off the couch going, "You idiot! What are you, blind?" And then they show the replay, and you're like, "Okay, well, the call's right, but you're still an idiot." Yeah, I do that quite often. And I kind of think that's sort of the moment happening here in John 9. It's kind of a stretch, but I just think there's so often we're blind to what's really happening and we make these presumption sort of calls on stuff when we don't have any idea what's really happening behind the scenes. So the disciples are walking along here with Jesus and they come across this blind man. This is verse 1. And they say, as he went along, they saw a blind man from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" And I find that so funny. It's like, what are you talking about? You're starting from a position that Jesus has to be going, wait, I don't even know how to address the question. The question is so far off base. But then I started thinking through it. First of all, it's a very, very on-base issue at the time, but I'll get to that. But I started thinking, we do that all the time. We're always saying things to God that, like, he must be sort of saying, what are you talking about? You're starting from a weird position. Things like, God, why did you make this happen to me? And he's up there going, I didn't make that happen to you. You know, why, God, did I have to go through that? Why we have these questions we throw out sometimes that are completely off base. There was this show that used to be on TV called My Name is Earl. Anyone ever see that? It was humorous. I watched a little bit. The concept was he stole $5 from someone, takes the $5, goes into a liquor store, buys a lottery ticket. It wins, so now he has $100,000. He's all excited. He's pumped up. He runs out of the liquor store and gets hit by a car. So then he's in the hospital just in pain inside and out because that lottery ticket is gone. And so he has this brilliant thought going, this is because I'm a bad person. And all the stuff I've done in my past has caught up with me. So now, moving forward, and he had a list, I'm going to make right all the wrongs I've ever done so that good stuff will start happening to me. And I think that a lot of us watch that show or hear it right now, and you think, yeah, okay, that sort of makes sense. We have this idea that karma kind of makes sense. In fact, 6 out of 10 believe that karma is a real thing. If you're good, good things happen. If you're bad, bad things happen to you. 33% of Christians, when asked, do they believe in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior? Yes. Do you believe in karma? Yes. 33% of us are in this kind of like, yeah. And now, you have to understand what I'm talking about. I'm not saying if you go murder someone and then you're in jail and you're looking around the jail cell going, why do bad things happen to me? That's not what I'm talking about, all right? So don't have that. Like if you're driving 120 miles per hour down 41 freeway and you wrap your car around a telephone pole and you're like, man, why do bad things always happen to me? That's like, I'm always in these situations. Right? That's ridiculous. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about all that other stuff that you're kind of like, why can't I get ahead of this? Why is God not fixing this. We think something. We're starting from this position, but we are actually blind to what is really happening. I was in Cambodia a few years ago, and our denomination sent a bunch of money to help build a church. And so I'm at that church, and I'm there, and they're taking me around. They're going floor by floor. It was like this 4-story church building, and it was really cool. It was neat. It was in the middle of Phnom Penh, and I'm on the 4th floor, and I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. And then I look out, and right next to the church, like literally up to the wall of this church, is this massive slum. And it smells, I can smell it. There's lots of people, and there's these shanties, cardboard board thing. I'm looking at it going, and the missionaries next to me, I said, is it a little odd that we built this church when there's a slum like right there? Like they're looking up at this 4-story palace. I mean, it's not a palace, but in comparison, that has to be weird if you're coming to church each week with that happening right next door. Like, why didn't you do something? And I'll never forget the missionary telling me, oh, the Christians don't see that slum. I'm like, oh, sorry, what? They don't see that. That is karma. So they are living out whatever happened in a previous life. This is what happens. And if they do well there, in the next life, they're going to come back and it's going to be a lot better. And so there's not even a concept. In fact, they're not seeing the church either. They're in the same mindset. Both of them are like, okay, in the next life, I'll be better or worse depending on how I am in this life. And my mind was blown. I'm like, are you telling me the Christians coming to this church can't even see that slum? He's like, yes. I'm like, this is crazy. We live in a world where we're blind to things right next to us. So we can't look at John and go, oh, these guys, what are they talking about? We're doing it. And we don't have to go to Cambodia either. It can happen right here in our church. Have you ever been in church and someone's complaining about something? Let's say I change the stage. You know, I'm trying to use an example that I haven't heard. So let's say we change something on stage and we decide to change the crosses out to rocks. I don't know, there's rocks over there, but whatever. And someone will be complaining and angry about a change when people are dying and going to hell right outside in our neighborhoods, living next to our homes. Do we ever become blind to the fact that people need to hear about Jesus and we complain about ridiculous things? And I was really careful on this because sometimes I got to be careful with my examples because some of them will hit too close to home. I had to balance this line of, all right, I want you to hear the truth. I don't want to get an angry Facebook post. Where do I back this up? Right here. Because we need to hear this. We need to make sure that we're not like blind to what God is asking of us and calling us to have real sight right here, right now. Do we have the eyes of Jesus? Are we seeing what Jesus wants us to be seeing? Because these guys are blind. He's giving them an example of a blind man, but these guys are blind to what's really going on. So we have to back up to understand this miracle. Back up all the way to the last miracle. So last week, we talked about walking on water. And Jesus is walking on water, they teleport to the side, and then John chapter 6, verse 25 says this, and it's all going to lead to chapter 9. Here it comes. When they found him on the other side of the lake, they asked him, Rabbi, when did you get here? And he answered, well, truly I tell you, you're looking for me, not because you saw the signs performed, but because you ate the loaves and had your fill. Do not work for food that spoils, but for food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you. In other words, you're blind to what is really right in front of you. You're chasing food, like you're excited about food and wine and all these miracles, but you don't have the sight to see what's really happening right here, right now. Verse 35, then Jesus declared, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. But as I told you, you have seen me, and still you do not believe. Now here's what happens next, and it's quite fascinating. So there's more than 12 disciples at this point. He's got just a massive amount of people following him at this point. Why? Because he's doing like bread and like he's feeding people and he's doing all these miracles. And so all these disciples are like, we're with you. And then he starts talking about, I'm the bread of life. You need to eat me to have eternal life. And they're like, did he just say we need to eat him? Like, what in the world? And so he keeps saying stuff and they're going, oh, this guy's actually crazy. And so there's this blind versus sight that happens here. Are we going to be blind or are we going to see? And so disciples start bailing. They're just bailing. You read the scripture, they're bailing left and right. And then the Pharisees hop in because they always like to hop in. And they're trying to kill him at this point because they're completely blind too. And so now there's this illustration that's being taught. We get to chapter 8, verse 12. When Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Like me stumbling around in the morning, that's how most people are actually living life, trying to figure it out in complete darkness. And what happens when we're in complete darkness? We bump into each other, we break things, we crash. There's all kinds of moments where we hurt each other because we're just in this darkness trying to figure it out when he is the light. So if we don't have the light, we're just going to keep seeing this breaking and hurting and pain as we bump into each other in the dark. We get to verse 56. So what's happening in 56 is they're trying to throw Abraham's descendants at him. They've already thrown Moses. Now they're throwing Abraham's descendants at him. And he's like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Your father Abraham rejoiced at the thought of seeing my day. He saw it and was glad. See, Abraham wasn't blind, but you're blind. It always comes back to this blindness and sight. Over and over, he's saying, you're blind and you need to see. Then we get to chapter 9. And chapter 9, he's like, okay, here we go. Let me show you. For 3 chapters, I've been trying to tell you, but let me show you through this miracle. In fact, verse 3 alludes to it. Neither this man nor his parents sinned, said Jesus, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. Do you think the blind man was a little surprised when he heard this? Think about the blind man for a second. He's sitting there going, wait, let me just capture this for a second. I have been blind my whole life because of an illustration of glory that you now want to show through me. The reason I'm blind is because you're going to have a moment to show all these people this incredible thing. That sounds wonderful unless you're the blind person, right? Just take that in for a minute. Like, you have to understand that God over and over has said things like this. I'm going to use the things of this world to show my glory. Here's the hard part. Sometimes the things of this world are the pain and struggle that we're going through. So do you want to be used by God? Be careful, because over and over, we're still talking about this person. This was an incredible gift, and it's going to be an incredible gift for thousands of years from this point on. But he still had to live it. So when we come to these moments, that's why I asked Becky to do this testimony. This moments like 9/11, that is heartbreaking. I still kind of cringe up when you hear it. But God's glory can still come from it. Now, understand me, please don't think I'm saying God caused 9/11, because that is where people go sometimes. No, God's glory can come from any moment if we allow it. If you take a negative experience, if you take something that you're going through right now, some of you are in it right now. You're going through it going, God, I don't understand why this isn't being healed, why this isn't being fixed, why am I facing this? And God is saying, I can still use this to show my glory. I still have a purpose for you in this. I'm not saying he caused it. Please do not misunderstand. This is a theological nightmare. You have to be very careful. But you're saying God is going to be there going, okay, this person who is blind, now watch what I do through this to absolutely change the future. And the reason I know he's doing that is over and over, we see these miracles. He never tells us the name of the person. That is such a key. Over and over in these miracles, like this guy this is a real person, has a name. If anybody else is writing the story, they're like, Johnny, or whoever his name was, he saw and it was amazing and he ran around, and then for the rest of life he did this, and it was just so cool to see what happened in Johnny's life. Nope. After this chapter, we're not going to hear of this guy again. Why? Because over and over, Jesus is showing a much bigger picture. He wants this to go on and affect you 2,000 years later. In this church, right now, we'll read about this miracle and use it to effectively put it into our own life and go, where am I blind? How am I blind? And how am I supposed to be moving forward with sight? So he takes this real situation and does it in such a way that we are absolutely moved by it today. I mean, that's amazing that he could even do that, but he does it over and over. John, the writer, there's no better example than who he's actually writing to with this book. You have to remember, this is written about 70 AD or a little bit later. Okay? Well, what is happening in history at that time? I'll tell you in case you don't have it just on the top of your head. So in that time period, this is when the Jews are running for their life. So they rise up against the Roman Empire. There's this literal, like, okay, we're going to do it. We're gonna get this occupying power out of here. So they rise up and they are destroyed. It does not go well. But the Romans came in there and said, okay, we're going to end this once and for all. We are so sick of these people that we're going to come in here and destroy it and wipe it off the map. And so they went in and took every brick apart. And the temple, the centerpiece of who they were, what they really were united behind, they took every single brick down, wiped it off the planet. So what happened in that? The Jews start running for their life, and no longer do they have the centerpiece of their faith. So they have to adjust, move forward, and make Christ the centerpiece of their faith. They don't all do it, but the Christians moving forward, no longer, they were still kind of like the temple is still part of it. The Pharisees play a role. How do we figure it? Like they're trying to figure it out. Well, it's gone. And now this is most likely sent out to the Ephesus church, to Asia Minor. We can literally track some of this where it's going because it's not going to Jerusalem anymore. That's gone. It's wiped away. So in their new life, they now have to say what was bad, what was terrible, what's something we didn't want to experience. How can we use this for the glory of God? He's using this example saying, now that I am your centerpiece, I have given you sight. Spread the message of who I am. And as they run, that message is moving across nations. We are a byproduct of a terrible situation, but someone using that and going, I, for the glory of God, am going to continue to press forward. I think of it sometimes like this. If an occupying power came into the United States, took over, and started telling us that none of us can worship anymore, none of us can follow Christ anymore, so then we, in that same scenario, this is what it was, we all try and escape because we believe that this Jesus is real and we want to share it and move forward. So then we start occupying other parts of the world. And within about 20 years, the message not only of Christ, but of freedom and everything that's United States starts spreading and being this new just revolution across the world. But why did it happen in the first place? A terrible, terrible thing happened with where we started. I hope this is encouraging because it's really tough to preach on. But here's the deal. Some of you are in that moment and you have to say, can I use this for the glory of God? It's a tough one. It's like I said, you have to be very careful when you preach on this subject because people can take it really bad and they can take it as, well, then God caused it. Nope, don't go there. Instead, what is God's glory in it? So this miracle, what's he addressing? Hoskins, in his book, The Fourth Gospel, it's about a history book about the Jewish literature that's all around the same time. He says what they continued to believe in was generational curses or original sin. He's addressing a real issue here. You can even see it in the Old Testament writing, this idea that you, from what your parents did, you can have sin in your womb, in the womb, and then you are born with that sin, and you can have a deformity because of that sin. So he's dealing with a real thing here that is actually believed. In the Old Testament, there's even leaders that talk about it, and you're like, okay, one of the first writings is Job. What does Job deal with? This subject. No, I'm not going through this because of a sin I did. Over and over, chapter after chapter, they keep telling him why he is facing what he's facing, and he's going, no, you're missing it. And God's saying, no, you're missing it. It's not about a sin I committed. That's not what this is about. It's much bigger, and God's glory is much bigger than what you're trying to put on me. One of the first books ever written. And so even as leaders talk about this and the tradition keeps passing it along, Jesus finally goes, guys, you are blind and it's time to see. All right? That's caught us up. That is a lot to catch up on to understand what's happening here. And then verse 6, after saying all this, spits on the ground, makes some mud with the saliva, puts it on the man's eyes, tells him to go. He told him, wash in this pool. This pool name means sent. So the man went and washed and came home seeing. Now, Jesus, once again, breaking rules. Broke 3. He broke 3 rules right here. I have an entire sermon on this subject, so go back and listen to it. In fact, I have the coin in my pocket right here. The first rule he broke was the Sabbath, and it's on my coin. I can sometimes see it. It says it. You're not supposed to break the Sabbath. He broke the Sabbath. Then he goes above that and starts breaking other laws. Another law he broke, he made mud. You can't make mud. Come on. You know you can't make mud. That's kneading. There's no kneading on the Sabbath. Right? That's an obvious rule. That's very important. And it said this pool is a little bit outside the range of what you're allowed to walk in one day on the Sabbath. Now, here's what's funny. You can walk in a circle on the Sabbath. You can walk all day long. You can do that. You just can't walk in a straight line. So, obviously, these rules are important. So, this pool was just a little bit further. Now, why does he tell him to do it? That's another strange thing. Because we know that Jesus could Oprah this thing. You have sight, and you have sight, and you have sight, right? That was funny. You didn't even laugh at that one. I like the Oprah joke. Anyway, he doesn't do that. And he doesn't do it with most of the miracles. And most of the miracles, he makes them do something. All right, go put some water in those things over there. Like every one of them has a job function to it. Why? It's like he wants us to obey him to move from blindness to sight. Interesting. And there's so much there. It's another sermon. I'm not even going to go into it. But there's an obey factor to all these miracles. Obey me in this, and you'll move from blindness to sight. That is like I said, it's another sermon. Now, what they do, all the people that see this miracle, is very obvious. Let's take this guy to the religious leaders and understand what happened here. It's so like, yeah, that's naturally what you would do. Unfortunately, it only solidifies who's blind and who has sight, because they go and it doesn't go well. Verse 15, therefore the Pharisees also asked him now he had received his sight. How he had received his sight. He put mud on my eyes, the man replied, and I washed, and now I see. Some of the Pharisees said, there's a debate here, this man is not from God, for he does not keep the Sabbath. It's a very obvious thing to see. Oh, whatever. But others asked, how can a sinner perform such signs? So they were divided. So different miracles, same debate, right? How could someone do this? It's got to be God. But wait, if it's God, he wouldn't break his own rules. That doesn't make any sense. And that's the debate, and they can't get past it. So where are we in the story? You got to personalize it, because some of us can't get past the blindness of doubt or uncertainty or confusion. You have this running debate going on in your head. All right, are we really just born to then go to school for way too long, right? To get a job? What's the job for? So I can make money, get a house, find that loved one across the schoolyard, right? Then you get married and have kids. Oh, that's what it was all about, kids. And then you have those kids and you're like, that's not as fun as I thought it would be. But grandkids, that's finally the joy of it all, right? So is it all for the joy of grandkids? And then we die? That can't be what this life's all about. So that debate's in your head. But then the other debate, but if there's a God, why is there so much gross and pain and destruction? This world does not make sense if there's a God. How could he allow it to be so bad? And how could he have allowed this to happen to me? And that's hitting hard on the other one, right? And so there's this blindness going, I don't know how to put these two things together. I know there's more, I can feel there's more, but man, how could this world exist the way it's existing? Isn't that the truth? That's the debate. And you have to push through that and go, okay, I don't understand it, but I got to move forward. I was blind, but now I can see. That's what this guy does. Verse 25, he replies, whether he's a sinner or not, I don't know. It's a great answer. I don't know. And in that scenario I just gave you, I don't know. One thing I do know is that I was blind, but now I see. And for us, we have this moment of going, I don't get it, but I know I was this way before, and I'm this way now. And that's going to have to be enough. What's that for you? You were put here for a purpose. You're in this church for a purpose. You live where you live for a purpose. You have the neighbors that you have on purpose. Can you live that way? You're the only one with your spiritual gifts, your talents, what you have to offer here and in your neighborhood and your city. You're the only one with that past, that history that you can bring into it and go, this is where I let God have the glory. And it wasn't easy, but here's how I'm different because of it. Can you put all of that and go from blindness to sight? The moment for this guy, the blind guy, was verse 25. What's the moment for you? Where are you going to be in this story? Finally, verse 38, the man says, Lord, I believe. And he worshiped him. This is all we get from this guy. It's very, very simple stuff. I don't understand all the details. I called you a prophet at first, but now I've seen I have seen, basically, really and truly, I have seen, and so I believe. And he worshiped him. A way I like to think of this a lot of times is with the sun, the real sun, the one that's right outside the building, shining on all of us. So when the sun hits butter versus clay, take these two analogies. When sun hits butter, it starts to mold and warm, and you can do stuff with it, mostly eat it, right? Whatever. You can do lots of stuff with it. It's moldable. But when the sun hits clay, it becomes dry, and it starts to crack, and it can break completely. For the Pharisees, the heart of the Pharisees, when the sun hit, the truth hit, they could move from blindness to sight. Instead, they were the clay. They dried, they got harder, they called him a devil, they went after him, they tried to kill him, they broke. But then there was people like the blind man and others. When they saw the sun and they saw this moment, they took it and go, no, I don't know everything, but I know enough to believe. So where are you? Because this is hitting you the same way. Can you move from blindness to sight? Can you be like the butter? Or are you going to stay like this clay that just dries and gets harder and harder, and eventually it cracks and it breaks? Where are you?